Alrighty then, welcome back once again. G-Man here.
And Paul here.
And we're going to go over some starts and sits for the week 2 of NFL regular season between first game. We're going to do 2 games in this video. The first game we're going to do is the Indianapolis Colts at the Tennessee Titans. Paul, why don't you start us off with some key injuries that may be happening in this game?
Okay, so the only injuries I really see right now is for the Colts. Devin Funchess is out with a collarbone injury indefinitely. He's on the IR, so don't know when he's coming back, but that's a big blow for them. I think like he was planning on being like a solid number 2 option there in Indy for the Colts offense. But so definitely will lead to more targets for T.Y. Hilton, which we're going to explain later. So
Yep, and nothing of significance for the Tennessee Titans.
Yeah, nothing.
So, Paul, why don't you start us off with some of the players on that Indianapolis Colts offense? Start us off with the quarterback there nowadays,
Okay.
Jacoby Brissett.
So for your starts and sits, Jacoby Brissett, the ex-Patriot, he went 21 for 27 last week, 190 yards, which is not much, but he did have 2 touchdowns. So with the limited with a low amount of attempts and yards, he still produced as far as getting you touchdowns. Only ran the ball 3 times for 9 yards. Would you start him? I'd say
2 quarterback league.
In a 2 quarterback league, start him. Even though the Titans
against the
defense
Cleveland
did pretty
Browns.
well.
Yeah. So I'm going to go over that real quick. The Tennessee Titans defense against the Cleveland Browns, I think we'd agree Baker Mayfield, in theory, is a better quarterback than Jacoby Brissett, right?
Yes.
So they only gave up 13 points. They had 5 sacks. So that's something you got to worry about.
They went crazy.
Indy does have a good offensive line, but still, they had 3 interceptions, a defensive touchdown, and only gave up 285 passing yards. So this
they killed
probably
it.
will be a slightly
So this
tough
is what I'm going to
matchup
say. I'm going to
for
say
Indy.
as a 2 QB league, you're sitting Brissett. No, sorry. As a 1 QB league, you're sitting Brissett. Sorry, guys. In a 2 QB league, start him. But if you have better options, go for it.
I agree.
Because of the matchup. And then next on this list, Marlon Mack, the Mack truck. Marlon Mack destroyed it last week. He had 25 attempts, 174 yards, and a touchdown. I'm not surprised though at the same time because Mack killed it at times last week. So I would say you're starting Marlon
I don't
Mack.
think we need to go
it's
too
not
into
even.
that one, yeah.
It's not even close.
RB2.
Yeah, with that like upside as an
of
RB1
course.
for sure. Nyheim Hines, he got 4 tries on the run and then 4 targets in the air. I just don't see him having a real role here that's worth starting. Maybe in like a PPR format, maybe as a desperation flex in PPR. But
if you think Indy's going to get blown out in this game like Tennessee did against the Browns, maybe he has value. But otherwise, I think I'm going to probably sit him.
I'm going to pass on Nyheim Hines. So next on this list, we have the wideouts, T.Y. Hilton. I mean, the guy I thought that with luck, leaving this team and everything, that T.Y.'s numbers would just go down. But look at this. It caught 8 passes out of 9 targets, had 2 touchdowns and 87 yards. He produced.
Yeah,
so,
and even with, if you think about it, right, T.Y. is the number 1 in this offense. Odell for the Browns is the number 1 in that offense. And while he didn't have a crazy week, Odell, even with that crappy performance that the Browns had against the Titans, he still had 7 receptions for 70-plus yards. So if you want to look at that as a comparison, I think T.Y. Hilton, you're still going to probably give him a start. Wide receiver 2.
Wide receiver 2, for sure. Yeah, start him.
We touched on the Devin Funchess. He's out, so you can't even think about him. And Paris Campbell, probably one of my favorite rookie talents. And with Funchess going down, this could force Campbell's, obviously, his targets to go up. But we're going to have to wait and see.
Had 1 target, 1 yard.
Right.
So I wouldn't.
That's obviously going to change.
Yeah, sure.
But
but
you're not going to start him just yet.
We'll see. And so, what was really shocking about last week was the tight ends for the Colts that usually produce, both of them usually produce decent fantasy numbers, especially Eric Ebron, who had a bazillion touchdowns last year. Both of them really goose-egged it. Ebron caught 1 of 3 targets for 8 yards, and Jack Doyle had 1 of 2 targets for 20 yards. I can't start any of these guys until I see some kind of chemistry between one of them.
If you were going to start one, though,
and Brissett.
Not for this matchup, but going forward, who do you think you would want to lean on? Who are you looking at as potential?
I mean, to me...
Because do you really think that that's going to be week over week? Probably not.
No.
They're going to have better weeks than that.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, to me, like, Ebron is the better tight end. So I guess I'd go with him.
But they do give Jack Doyle more of the start work.
They give him more of the work, yeah. So I mean, I go more upside. So maybe we don't agree on this, but I would still say Ebron just because I mean the guy had a lot of red zone looks last year, and I just don't see that going away. Like all of a sudden, just because of a new quarterback. So I would say eventually Ebron is okay, but right now you got to sit both of them in this game.
Yeah.
So that's my opinion.
All right, so we're going to just go ahead and recap everything we said so far with the starts and sits here. Jacoby Brissett, start him in a 2-quarterback league, but if you have other options, maybe go with someone else. Marlon Mack, no question. Mack attack, you're going to give him a start as your RB2. Nyheim Hines, maybe sit him this week. He could be a good flex in PPR formats, but for this matchup, we're going to go ahead and say sit. T.Y. Hilton, you're going to start him as your wide receiver 2. And you're going to sit Eric Ebron, Paris Campbell, and Jack Doyle. All right, so moving on. Let's move on to that Tennessee Titans offense. And one moment. I'm just going to get the notes on that. So, yeah, here they are.
Okay, so we got first here Marcus Mariota coming back from the dead.
Against the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah.
The Super Bowl team, remember?
Yeah.
The Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, so, guys, again, I mean, I was calling it this summer. I think the Browns are overhyped. That's kind of just me. But I did expect this defense to be much better than what they showed in week 1. And I did not expect Marcus Mariota to go off for 3 touchdowns, 248 yards, and completing 14 of 24 attempts. He also ran the ball 3 times for 24 yards. However, and this is what I will say, Marcus Mariota has a tendency of disappearing. The man can be a ghost, and he can have a great game and then do nothing another game. Only 24 attempts, Garrett. I don't like that about Marcus Mariota. I don't like that he has only 24 attempts. So right now, I would say you are sitting Marcus Mariota.
Wow.
Even
after that game,
even against this Colts defense, I don't know if I trust him right now.
And look, the Colts defense last week gave up 30 points. Had 4 sacks, which is respectable, forced an interception, but also gave up 333 passing yards and 125 rushing yards. But
yeah,
I think I agree with you.
I don't know.
I'm not going to all of a sudden change my
trust
opinion on Marcus Mariota
yeah.
because of one game.
Yeah. So I mean, right now, I mean, I would pick him up though. As far as
available.
If you're in a 2-quarterback league, pick him up and stash him right now because who knows? I mean, we know that Marcus Mariota can also run the ball. The guy has legs. But again, like one of his plays was a 75-yard touchdown to Derrick Henry. So if you take that away, he has under 200 yards passing and only 2 scores.
It's a freak
That's
play.
not really a great game per se. But it's good to see Marcus Mariota at least try to distance himself from Ryan Tannehill because there was rumors that Ryan Tannehill was going to come in and take over that. And right now, I just don't see old man Tannehill taking over there. So I think Mariota, at least he's keeping his job safe. But for now, you're sitting him on your bench, but keep him on that bench.
I like it.
Yeah.
We're the number 1 haters for Marcus
Mariota.
All right, moving on to the running backs. So we'll start off with Derrick Henry, someone who we mentioned we're not really that high on here at Pigskin Paisanos, but you know what? Week 1 against the Cleveland Browns,
he did okay.
19 rushing attempts for 84 yards, a touchdown, and then had, as Paul just stated, had 1 reception out of 2 targets, and on that 1 reception, 75 yards to the house.
So again, I mean, obviously you're starting Derrick Henry as an RB2, but again, like I'm not high on Derrick Henry. We're not high on him because he can have games where again,
he's shown you
like Marcus Mariota,
games.
like this Titans offense, they can disappear out of nowhere. So again, like you're starting him just because of last game
and the workload
because of the workload, of course. So start him, but if he lays a goose egg, don't be shocked by that. That's all.
All right. So how about our boy Dion
Lewis? Well, look,
not a good game in week 1, which is surprising.
Yeah, he had 3 attempts on the ground for 7 yards, and he caught 3 or 4 targets for 6 yards. So not really that great. Kind of like Nyheim Hines, just that desperation flex in like a PPR format because they are facing a defense.
Do you take into account how Austin Eckler was able to do though?
That is true.
In week 1 against this Indy defense, where he kind of
that is true.
had some really nice work in that pass catching role.
That is true.
And if anybody's going to get that pass catching work, it's not going to be Derrick Henry on these freak 75 yards.
Yeah. Okay. So let's say this. Let's say sleeper
flex.
Yes. Maybe
PPR especially.
Sleeper flex and like a PPR. Let's say that.
I think so, right?
But in any other format, I would say sit.
Sit him for sure.
Sit Dion.
Let's move on to the wide receivers. So we got Corey Davis,
Mr. Goose Egg.
He put up a goose egg already. He had 0 receptions on 3 targets, but with that said, outside of Delaney Walker, everybody else, AJ Brown, 4 targets. Adam Humphries, 1 target. Corey Davis, 3 targets. That can't be a week over week, right? I know Marcus Mariota, we just said he's not the best quarterback, but there's got to be more targets to go around than that.
So look at the Cardinals game, for example, right? Kyler Murray, 54 passing attempts versus Mariota's 24. Which offense do you trust more to produce week in and week out? I would say the Cardinals offense, right? So because the Titans offense scored on so little pass attempts, it's hard to trust any of these guys really. So and really let's start with Corey Davis. 0 catches, only 3 targets. A lot of guys are dropping him in Yahoo leagues right now.
But you do see him as the team's number 1
He's
wide receiver, right?
He's a de facto number 1. If you're going to tell me that AJ Brown is really the number 1, I don't buy it yet. There were games last year where Tajay Sharp looked like he was going to take over, and I picked him up, and I'm like, oh, and then he did nothing after that. So I would say Corey Davis, though, is maybe a buy low kind of candidate. I'm
Would
thinking
you
of picking
start him
up.
though?
Oh, hell no.
Really?
I'm not starting Corey Davis.
Just
man.
because I'm seeing what I know Keenan Allen's a different player, but the number 1 against this defense did pretty good.
No,
last week.
I'm sorry, G-man. I can't start Corey.
I'm not
Davis.
saying I'm going to start him either, but it's something to think about because
I can't start Corey Davis. But
week
if
1,
someone
I don't look at him like
someone dropped him in your league, or if someone is giving him away for chump change, maybe pick up Corey Davis and see if he can return that magic he used to have.
So we're just gonna run through real quick. Adam Humphries could be a good PPR player, but only had 1 target last week, had 1 reception, 5 yards. So we're gonna probably say sit him as well. AJ Brown was someone who probably got picked up in a lot of your leagues as a hot waiver wire.
Yeah.
Had 3 receptions on 4 targets and 100 yards.
But I think one of those was like a 51-yard play. So half of his yards came from 1 play. So again, maybe start, but as
I'm sitting him. That's crazy. Yeah.
Would you start him as a flex though,
no? Because remember we talked about it, he had barely any snaps. So if you're telling me he's unless they
I'll
show
go with
you
G-Man on this one,
that their snaps are going to increase for him, that's crazy to think. On less than 25 snaps, he's always going to be able to. That's crazy. That kind of, what I mean?
See, guys, this is where I was almost fooled by the yardage right here. But if you look at the targets, only 4 targets, that's not trustworthy numbers right there. So I would agree with G-Man, sit him.
Let's move on. Tight end, Delaney Walker.
Maybe the only guy I would consider starting.
Out of this receiving core, probably had 5 receptions on 6 targets for 55 yards, 2 touchdowns.
2 touchdowns. He looks like a safety blanket to me.
I think so. And I think when he's been healthy outside of last year, he's always had a great chemistry and connection with Mariota. He's an obvious start for me. The defense, if we just want to touch on it again, had a pretty good matchup here against Cleveland. I know they're versing Indy. What do you think about that one?
Maybe, maybe start them as a sleeper start. I would say
so too.
Have a sleeper start. Brissett doesn't seem like the kind of guy that would make a lot of mistakes, though. Kind of like Baker, but maybe.
But then again, Baker had 3 interceptions week 1 against that Tennessee defense.
You got to ride the hot hand, and there's a lot of them right now in that defense in Tennessee. So why not? Yes, if unless you have like some kind of elite option and matchup on defense, pick them up and stream them. Stream them this week. Yeah.
So we're gonna just review it. Marcus Mariota, we're gonna go ahead and say sit him. We're gonna say Derrick Henry, start him as your RB2. Dion Lewis, sleeper flex, just because of the matchup. We're gonna go with Corey Davis as a sit. Adam Humphries as a sit. AJ Brown as a sit. Delaney Walker as your tight end. And start that defense. All right, so that's going to be the end for that matchup between the Colts and the Titans. We're going to move on to the second game in this video. The 49ers at the Cincinnati Bengals. So why don't we talk about if there's any key injuries in that matchup as well?
Well, unfortunately for the Bengals, there are some key injuries. You got Joe Mixon, the starting running back, questionable with an ankle injury. Joe Mixon, unfortunately, has these little nagging injuries, like a week here, week there, he's out.
Might not play, yeah.
He might not play, which makes Giovanni Bernard now fantasy relevant again. So we would say keep that in mind as you're setting lineups. AJ Green still dealing with an injury. However, as far as you know, he is out of the walking boot. So if you have drafted and stashed AJ Green, good for you, because he might be back sooner than later. However, you're obviously, going to focus on the other wideouts on this team, such as Tyler Boyd, etc., that we will talk about later. So those are. Oh yeah, also for the San Francisco 49ers, Nick Bosa is questionable with an ankle injury, and Tevin Coleman
in that week 1 matchup.
Yeah, so that's not good. However, that defense on San Francisco really did well last week.
Yeah.
But Tevin Coleman also is dealing with a high ankle sprain. He's going to be out, so that will affect the target share for the other halfbacks on this team. So
let's move into it then. Let's go with that San Francisco 49er offense. Jimmy G last week seems like he might, he had a really rough preseason, and he did tear his ACL early in the year last year. So he could just be slowly trying to work himself back, or we might be seeing who he really was in that weird 5 to 6 game stretch he had when he first arrived in this is a false version. Either way, in that week 1 matchup, he went 18 of 27 against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers passing defense, which we would have thought would be a good matchup, but he only passed for 166 passing yards, 1 touchdown, and an interception.
That's really shocking to me, G-Man. I thought Jimmy G would really put it on and have maybe, an old school game like he was when he was on the Pats. So because of that, G-Man, I think I got to sit Jimmy G this week.
I agree with you, because if you look at what Cincinnati's defense, which was a weird – talk about of all the games that were weird in week 1, was that Cincinnati's Bengals Seattle Seahawks game. And if you look at the statistics for the defense that Cincinnati was able to do against that passing attack and rushing attack against Seattle – they only allowed for 196 passing yards and only allowed for 72 rushing yards. Am I saying that's going to happen week over week? Of course not. No. But it does make me think in this matchup with Jimmy G, we keep hearing the rumors about how he hasn't been looking too great this offseason. We saw it in preseason. We saw it in week 1 against what should have been a favorable matchup. So, yeah, I think I agree with you. And as much as it hurts to say, a fellow Paisano, we're going to say to sit him.
Sit him.
Sit. Forget
about it.
All right, so moving on. Tevin Coleman, unfortunately dealing with that high ankle sprain, could be missing several weeks. And as we talked about in other videos, those high ankle sprains, they seem to linger sometimes. Guys think they're ready to come back, and they just re-aggravate. It really stinks for a running back as well to be, or any of the skill positions to be dealing with this kind of injury because of the amount of shifting, cutting, and agile movements they need to have. But when he was in the game, he had 6 attempts, 23 yards so almost 4 yards per carry, had 2 receptions, 3 targets, had 33 yards. I think one of those receptions was like a 30-plus yard reception.
So because of the injury to Tevin Coleman, you're going to see a higher target share from Matt Breida.
Absolutely.
And so because of that, Matt Breida is the number 1 there now because Coleman's down. Even when Coleman was there, Breida still seemed like the number 1 because he got a lot of attempts. He got 15 attempts, but only 37 yards, which is kind of shocking. He really didn't produce.
Make
But
Tampa Bay's defense look better than
but guys,
it really is.
but guys, again, it's all about the it's really about the amount of chances you get, right? So that kind of chance to me means that they're gonna feed him that ball no matter what. They might be sucking or doing well. Breida is gonna get his chances, and so because of that, I think I'm starting Matt. I think I'm
The
starting
matchup doesn't
Matty
worry
Breida.
you? You think Bengals doing that well defensively was kind of just an anomaly, like only allowing 72 rushing yards? You don't think that has to be something to worry about in this matchup, or you think just because of the opportunities and the talent,
I think flex.
Breida's going to be
At least a flex.
a flex?
Make
I
him
think
a flex.
I agree.
Make him a flex.
I think I agree. How about Raheem Mostert, who's
Okay.
going to become the Breida,
Yeah.
the new Breida?
So if you guys
in this
never
role.
heard of him, Raheem Mostert, some of you might have picked him up as a waiver ad this week because of the Tevin Coleman injury. I would pick him up, but I would not start him.
Me neither.
I mean, he had 9 rushes for 40 yards. However, I would do a wait and see with Raheem Mostert. So sit him.
Let's move on into this receiving core for the San Francisco 49ers. And boy, oh boy, was it really abysmal last week. We're just going to run through it because I think we agreed off of the video that nobody's getting a start
Yeah.
as far as wide receivers go.
Yeah.
Dante Pettis had 1 reception on 1 target, only 7 yards. I mean, I think he might have came out of the game too. There was some sort of weird, right? I forget the injury that
I thought he was sick.
Maybe that's what it might have been. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, or something.
Marquise Goodwin, who people thought ourselves too, he could have been a sneaky play because of the chemistry he had with Jimmy G.
Yeah, with Jimmy G. What happened?
But I mean, he only had
No.
1 reception on 3 targets. So this is
yeah.
and the rookie Deebo Samuel out of South Carolina only had 3 receptions on 3 targets. He seemed to do the best, had 17 yards, but did lose a fumble. So
it's not good for a rookie.
these guys, I think, later on in the season will provide value for you. But until Jimmy G can show us and this offense in general that they, have the tools and the kind of like game plan to get this thing going, I think unfortunately all 3 are going to sit them.
You got to sit all of them.
And then moving on to arguably one of the very best tight ends in the entire NFL, George Kittle last week had 8 receptions on 10 targets, only 54 yards on that, but still. I mean, you see it here, 10 targets.
10 targets compared to 3 by Deebo and 3 by Goodwin. I mean, the guy is the offense, I think, there. So start George Kittle.
Now, what do you think about this defense? Because now Tampa Bay, we thought would be a really good offense, right? Especially in that matchup. But the San Francisco defense last week was really strange. Only gave up 17 points. Got 3 sacks, 3 interceptions, 1 fumble recovery, 2 defensive touchdowns, and only allowed 194 passing yards. Did allow 121 plus rushing yards, but still, what do you think here?
Sleepy start for sure.
With that Seattle, right? I'm sorry, with that Cincinnati offense because Joe Mixon's going to be out.
I would say
possibly.
sleepy start, and also Dalton has games where he throws picks and has turnovers. I don't know how many fumbles that Dalton had, but didn't he have 2 fumbles?
Fumbles.
He had 2 fumbles. So, I would say
was sacked 5 times.
Sacked 5 times.
Which shows you because of the injury to Jonah Williams and some of these other players retiring that the Cincinnati Bengals offensive line is probably going to struggle all year.
Yep. And so I would say start the 49ers defense.
I think
as
so
a sleepy
too.
Start. Why not?
So just to go over it again, Jimmy G, Paisano, we're going to have to sit you. Sorry, bud.
Sorry.
Tevin Coleman's going to be out for injury till further notice. Matt Breida, a flex.
Why
Flex
not?
is the opportunity.
Because of opportunity.
Raheem Mostert, pick him up if you can, waiver wire, but don't start him in this game. Dante Pettis, you're going to have to sit. Marquise Goodwin, you're going to have to sit. And Deebo Samuel, you'll have to sit. And then George Kittle, you can make as your tight end 1. And think about starting the 49ers defense. Okay, so moving on to this Cincinnati Bengals offense. Let's start with the Ginger, the Great Red Dragon. Andy Dalton had a crazy week 1 against that Seattle Seahawks defense. Go into it for us, Paul.
Okay, so Dalton had 51 passing attempts, completed 35 of them, had 418 yards and 2 touchdowns. However, he was sacked 5 times and fumbled the ball twice. So what does that tell us, G-Man? That tells us that he is air raiding this football. Even with a terrible line, it seems like they're just going to pass it now, especially with Joe Mixon out. I think this is going to be a passing game, especially if they're down in this game. So I would say I might have to start Andy Dalton.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I think so too.
But maybe in a
More a
two-quarterback
two-quarterback
league,
play.
I would start him. But in a quarterback one league,
Probably
I
not.
would be kind of concerned because of the defense and just because of the fact that Mixon's out, that line. Dalton might have a lot of turnovers. So, but I would say start him in a two.
Moving on.
quarterback.
Yep, I agree with you, Paul. Moving on. Joe Mixon. He's dealing with the ankle injury. We're recording this now Thursday night, so we're not really sure if he's going to be a game time decision or just be a scratch.
Yeah, if we assume let's just assume that he sits for now.
We're going to go off that.
Just because of the injury, sit him for now. Hopefully you picked up his backup, Gio Bernard.
Yep. Only had 6 attempts, 10 yards, 2 receptions, 3 targets. So obviously not a good game, but obviously, when this guy's healthy, he's one of the better running back talents out there. But I think for this week, you're just going to have to sit him because of that injury.
Yeah.
Gio Bernard, though. Gio Bernard had 7 rushing attempts, 21 yards, and then had 2 receptions on 3 targets, 42 yards. What do you think of Gio this week?
I think he's a tough one because we saw this defense that...
You saw Ronald Jones have a pretty decent game against
true.
the San Francisco 49ers,
That's true.
right?
That's true. And Gio is going to get work, of course. So I would say start him, but as
PPR
a
flex, right?
As a flex, yeah.
I think so, too. Move on to the wide receiving core. Tyler Boyd, the de facto number 1 until A.J. Green comes back. And Tyler Boyd had an okay game, too. A lot of targets here. At 8 receptions on 11 targets, only 60 yards, but still, that's at least a PPR format. It's a 14-point day.
Yep.
A lot of targets. What do you think here?
Target share, guys. Target share. Trust it. Go for it. You're starting Tyler Boyd there.
What would you put him, though? Which wide receiver would you have him slotted in? Is your 2 or your 3?
I'd say maybe, maybe on that borderline right now. I would say maybe more of a 3 because I think John Ross is going to cut into his workload a little bit.
John Ross. We're starting to believe in a John Ross now.
Let's see. Well,
and moving
John Ross
on,
is cutting into the workload a little bit.
Let's get into John Ross. So John Ross had one of the best games of his whole career. People are like, finally, dude.
Yeah, finally.
Been waiting for you to do something similar to this. John Ross, a third, had 7 receptions on 12 targets, 158 receiving yards, and 2 touchdowns.
Huge.
Beast of a game.
Yeah, big game.
Beast
for
of a
John
game.
Ross.
But
career game.
But
do you trust it, guys?
Do you trust it?
Do you trust it?
And look at what the San Francisco passing defense was able to do to Mike Evans, Chris Godwin. Those are better receivers than John Ross.
But can you sit John Ross after having an insane week like that?
No,
I don't know
I
if
don't
I
think
can
so.
sit him. I think I'm starting him as a flex, G-man.
Yep. I think I agree with you. Play the hot hand, see if he stays healthy while AJ Green's out. See if Andy Dalton can ball out again. And
but guys, don't be shocked if John Ross has 1 fantasy point
if he
for you. Don't be shocked
right
because
back.
he's done it so many times before. But just saying, okay.
Okay, and how about Tyler Eifert? Seems like he's not made of glass.
The
just
resurrection.
Yet. Yeah, had 5 receptions on 6 targets for 27 yards, and that's really it. But
sorry, G-man, I'm sitting him. I'm sitting Tyler Eifert until I see him.
OJ
really
have
come back.
Against
Yeah,
this 49ers defense.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't seen Tyler Eifert have a relevant game in a long time. I was huge on him years ago. He used to get a lot of red zone looks back in the day, and he does still have Andy Dalton on that team. So I'd say Eifert, sit him for now, but not a bad stash maybe if if he can return to his former glory. But
what do you think about this defense this week? Just like we went to the 49ers, this defense against the Seattle Seahawks only gave up 21 points, got 4 sacks, 1 fumble recovery, and only gave up 196 passing yards and only 72 rushing yards.
Not bad.
We're talking about Chris Carson. We're talking about Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf. Russell Wilson? What do you think in this matchup?
I think it's tough, Garrett, because we know
we don't like Jimmy G in this matchup.
We don't like Jimmy G, but we also don't like that line on the Bengals right now. So it's pretty tough for me. I would say both teams are sneaky starts because both of them did perform pretty well in week 1. I would say, though, I would rather play the defense for San Francisco rather than the Bengals. So even though the Bengals did admirably well, I think I'd have to sit them in this one. I think, I don't know, G-man. That's
I'm
just
going to go with a start because
maybe a gut on this one.
If you go back into what we were saying, the only people in the 49ers offense that we really like is Breida and Kittle.
Mm-hmm.
We sat all the wide
True.
receivers. You know, we sat Debo. We sat Marquise Goodwin. We sat Dante Pettis.
Can you trust the
sat
front
Jimmy
seven
G.
of Cincinnati though? Can you trust? Can you
I
trust
don't know
that
if I
D
can
line?
trust them, but
Can
the
you
fact
trust
that they were able to
D-line?
do that well, you know, against the Seattle offense last week,
Yeah.
I think it's worth looking at.
Okay,
If you don't have a
okay.
defense and you want to stream them,
So guys,
either defense.
we're
I
kind
think
of
you
on the
stream 'em.
fence here. We got one start, one sit. So it's up to you.
Let's go
What's
again.
with this?
San Francisco. I'm sorry, San Francisco. Let's go back to Seattle. Oh wow, I'm gonna get it on the third time.
Cincinnati.
Cincinnati Bengals. Andy Dalton.
Andy Dalton, you're starting. At least in a two quarterback league.
Yep.
In a QB1 maybe.
Gio
maybe find a
Bernard.
better option. Start flex.
Tyler Boyd.
Start him.
Where'd he put him? Wide receiver 2-3 range, right?
Yeah, 2-3.
John Ross.
Start him as a flex.
Tyler Eifert.
Sit.
And that defense.
I say sit, but G-Man
I'm
says
gonna go with
start.
start.
Okay.
All right,
Okay.
so that's going to do it for these two games in this video here between the Indianapolis Colts, Tennessee Titans, and the San Francisco 49ers and the Cincinnati Bengals. I'm G-Man.
Signing off, and this is Paul. Take care.
Peace.